So, Brienne, what are your initial thoughts about Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith? Alright, so we have made it to Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, the final movie in the prequel trilogy of the Star Wars movies, and therefore it is our 5th Star Wars movie to watch. Yeah. Consider that. 5th movie. We watched 4, 5, 1, 2, 3.
It feels like we haven't watched that many.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
We made it through.
It's going by quick.
What did you think about Revenge of the Sith?
It was crazy. Okay, so I was telling David, the first half of the movie, we split it up into 2 sections. So we watched the first half one day, and then we watched the second half the second day. Split it up into 2 because it's a long movie, right? The first half, I was like, okay, it's decent, it's okay, but I was like, there's nothing too crazy about it. I wasn't like way into it. But the second half, different story. I was like, eyes locked on the TV. Like, the second half redeemed the whole movie to the point where I think this could, like, might be my favorite episode so far. So, like,
yeah,
good. I liked it a lot.
So if you're new to this channel, basically what's been going on is I am a cinephile, right? I love movies. I grew up with movies. I've watched a bunch of movies. Brienne somehow avoided pop culture entirely, right? Her dad loves movies. Her family, they watch movies and stuff. Somehow she avoided pretty much every major motion picture since the beginning of time. And so she had basically no relationship to Star Wars other than going to Disney World. And then she'd seen one episode, which we still don't know which one, but we think it's episode 7. We'll see whenever we get there. So she basically didn't know anything other than the fact that Darth Vader was Luke's father. Yeah. And so there were some things in this episode that really surprised her. And for me, it was really cool to experience this. This was probably my favorite episode to watch with you, just because of how excited you were getting during the movie watching. Because I've seen all the Star Wars movies. I've seen most of them multiple times. And very, very exciting stuff. But you like the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah? You said it might be your favorite one?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Well, I'm sure we have a lot to talk about because I believe after this movie, you've officially said that you are a Star Wars fan, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. Well, I will also clarify, before we get into our specific point-by-point little things we're going to talk about, also stay to the end for a theological analysis of this episode, because I like doing that. But I would say that this also is one of, if not, my favorite episode of the Star Wars movies. And, usually the prequel trilogy gets a bad rap. And really, I mean, rewatching episodes 1 and 2, I get that.
Yeah.
Because those aren't that good of movies. I mean, they're not as bad as some people make them out to be, but when you compare them to the rest of the Star Wars movies, they're pretty bad. Episode 3, a lot of people don't like this one.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unanimously agreed that this is the best of the prequel trilogies, but there are a lot of people who don't like this one. And so I was going into it trying to see where they were coming from, because I remember growing up, I loved this movie. And rewatching it this time, I still loved it. Like, even you were saying you were kind of bored for the first half, and I could tell that. Yesterday when we were watching the first half, I could tell you were kind of bored with it. I even enjoyed that part. Yeah. To where, for something about it, I just enjoy this movie a whole lot. And I think there is a distinction to be made, because I do think, of all the movies, Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie. Because there's a lot more depth to it, and just from a cinematic perspective and stuff, I think it is a better movie. But when we're talking about which one I like more, I think Episode 3 takes it. Like, I think I could rewatch this movie again and again, specifically because of the climax and how it all wraps up so neatly to set up the original trilogy, and it's very, like, cathartic almost. Like, it feels good. You're like, it's like a very satisfying way to where whenever you watch the original trilogy and it sets up all these different things and you're trying to imagine how could this play out, Episode 3 gives you what I think fans wanted. Whereas Episode 1 and 2, you're kind of like, okay, like, Anakin seems kind of whiny, stuff like that. Whereas Episode 3, you're like, okay, like, this final fight, all this stuff, it all plays out so perfectly, and I love it. And so I tried going into this episode understanding what other people complained about it with. I just couldn't. I watched it. I was like, no, I really enjoy this. And then seeing your reaction just reinforced it all more. So that was cool. But let's talk about some play-by-play stuff in here. We're not going to talk about everything in the episode because that's not really how we've been doing these Star Wars reviews. We're just kind of talking about random stuff that stuck out to us. And this one probably even more so. We're probably going to talk mainly about the end because that's the stuff that stuck out to her. But I also just wanted to bring up other things that she made funny comments throughout the whole episode. And so I just wanted to bring stuff up just so that we could have her opinions here in this video.
Yeah.
And so if you're wanting an exhaustive review, that's not really what we're going to do. Yeah. We're just going to talk about stuff that we enjoyed. And so hopefully you'll enjoy talking about it as well. And so the first thing I wanted to bring up was the rolly droids. I don't know what they're called, but the droids that roll around and stuff, those have been in all of these first 3 episodes. And you have consistently said something about them and you've really liked them. And we never talked about them in the other videos. And so just what do you think about those guys?
There's no really rhyme or reason. Oh, well, okay, there is a reason why I like them, but they play no significant role in any of the movies. Like, they're just like any of the other droids. They're just kind of there to shoot and miss. That's basically what they're there for. But they remind me of these toys I had when I was a kid, and they're called Zoobles, right? So they're like these little, like, plastic little balls, and you stick them on a magnet, and they pop open, and they're like a little animal. And I used to play with those all the time when I was a kid. Those are like, I had a little carry caddy and everything, like, and so whenever I see them, and they just come, like, rolling in, and then they just, like, pop open, I'm like, those are cool. That's literally the only reason why. Like, they play no significant factor at all. I just think they're cool, and they remind me of toys I had when I was a kid.
Yeah, I've never been much of a video game player, but the one video game console I did have growing up was a Wii. And my favorite game to play on the Wii was Lego Star Wars, mainly because I liked playing with friends, and rather than actually focusing on the game, I'd wait for them to gather a bunch of coins, then I'd kill them. And I just thought that was fun, which is kind of dark if you think about it as a little kid. But us rewatching these actually inspired me to go dig up my Wii and like go find my Lego Star Wars game, and we actually played it earlier today after we got out of church, and she got so excited whenever, I think we were doing the episode 1 part, and those rolly droids, they just come out here. I don't know what they're called. If you're watching this and you're a Star Wars fan, you're probably going to tell us what the name is. But the droids that roll out there, they're like, she got so excited to see them, and I just felt like we needed to mention that because
they're cool.
Every episode, like, she's not really a huge fan of fight scenes. No. But every time those droids come out, she's like, like she gets so excited. And so I thought I'd mention them. But this episode also introduces us to General Grievous. Because, basically each episode has kind of had a new big bad. Really, the overall big bad, as we learn in this, is actually Darth Sidious, or Emperor Palpatine, as he will become known. But we'll talk about that in a second. But each movie's had kind of their big bad to where, you had Darth Maul in the first one, you had Count Dooku in the second one, but he's killed at the very beginning of this one, right, where Anakin kills him. The bad guy in this one is the robot guy, General Grievous, who carries like the 4 lightsabers and stuff. Yeah. And you had some opinions about him as well, so I figured I'd ask you, what do you think about General Grievous?
Okay, so I will say, I did not expect him to have 4 arms and 4 lightsabers. That is useful when it comes to battling. He was in the Lego Star Wars thing too.
He was.
And like,
it was a weird level.
Yes, it was very weird. He can defend himself really well, so I will give him that. But the thing that consistently confused me, which I know we're in, a figurative world, right? This isn't real. Like, this is robots and aliens fighting in space. I get that. But I feel like
It's actually based on true history. So I'm offended that you said that. But
there's some practicality we can have here. And the fact that a robot is constantly coughing, I'm like, you can't really have respiratory issues because...
Well, to be fair, we did see that he had a heart and
you're
stuff.
A robot. He did have a heart.
Yeah, so it seems like he was...
Maybe he has lungs. Yeah, I don't know.
I think they did say that... I think I heard somewhere that they explained that in the Clone Wars. Oh. Like the TV show in between episodes 2 and 3. I believe that they do explain somehow that, like, how he got the breathing problems.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, that's better.
But you kept calling him Mucinex guy.
Yes, I did. I did call him Mucinex.
She doesn't know his name, right? She doesn't know General Grievous.
No, I had no idea that was his name. But I knew that he was the one that coughed all the time, so I called him Mucinex guy, which it makes me sound like a really mean person. I promise I'm not.
She's pretty mean.
I promise I'm not mean.
No, she's like the sweetest person I've ever met. But no, she kept calling me a Mucinex guy. I thought it was pretty entertaining, so I brought him up as well. But then let's get to the big bad of the whole thing. We're kind of just escalating in villainy here. You know, we started with the little droids, then we went to General Grievous, and now we're going to the Chancellor. Chancellor Palpatine. He's been... Oh, I forgot to turn this on silent. Just give me a second. Slacker. Yeah, I know. Whoops. Whoops. Chancellor Palpatine, he's been in all of these prequel episodes. In this movie, it is revealed that he is the Emperor, who you really haven't met a lot because we haven't watched episode 6 yet. We actually, I kind of saved that for us, and so you've only gotten a taste of the Emperor, and through each of these movies, you've been wondering if you would ever see his face. Because episode 5, he's not in episode 4 at all. In episode 5, he's introduced, with Darth Vader talking to him through like a hologram thing, and you just see like the shadow. And then you go back to the prequels, and you see him again and again in the shadows. And you kept asking me as we were watching these, are we ever going to see his face? So what'd you think about the reveal that Chancellor Palpatine was the future Emperor, that he was the Sith Lord Darth Sidious?
I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't see that coming. Because we saw his face the entire time, and I feel like I should have recognized that. Like, I'm very disappointed in myself that I didn't get that. Because... I mean, I guess once you reveal anything, you're like, oh, I should have saw that. But, like, that I should have seen coming. Like, I don't know why, and I feel very dumb for not seeing
that was one that, if I'm being honest, I expected you to catch that one. I wasn't sure. Well, I'm not saying that in a dumb way. Like, to me, I think that means that they did a good job with it, because once you know the twist, it's very hard to not see it. So, to me, I'm watching episode 1, and I already know... Like, I kept being careful, because there were multiple times when we were... whenever we were watching episode 5, and you kept asking about the Emperor, I kept almost calling him Emperor Palpatine. But I had to kept catching myself, because if I said Palpatine, I mean, you'd probably forget. Just because there's a bunch of names to keep up with. But whenever I got back to Chancellor Palpatine, you'd be like, oh, and connect the dots. So I kept just calling him the Emperor, the Emperor, the Emperor. But, so it's hard going back to not see it. And then, when you watch it, like, there's just so many details where you're like, oh, this guy's obviously a bad dude. So I was... thinking you might catch on to that one. But you didn't, and so that to me that meant that they did a good job. It's not saying anything against you. It just means that they actually did a good job to where if somebody doesn't know who this person is, you know, it still will be a twist. And so I thought that was cool, seeing your reaction. It didn't click for you until Anakin was actually confronting him, right? Whenever they were talking about it. The moment I thought it would click for you is whenever they were in the... when Anakin and him are basically in what it's like an opera scene, like, you know, where they're like sitting out on like this thing, and there's like these weird like globe thing, like, I don't know, it looks like some sort of space opera like thing that they're sitting at, and he tells everybody else to leave, and him and Anakin are talking there, and he says, have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And like he starts saying like there's this guy who like learned how to achieve immortality and like save the people he loved from dying and stuff like that, and Anakin's like, how can you learn this? And he's like, oh, you can't learn it from a Jedi. And I was thinking that would be the moment it clicked for you, because this guy obviously knows something more. And I was thinking there, but then it didn't click, and I was like, okay, cool. And then a little bit later is whenever like they're talking, and then Anakin's finally like, you are the Sith Lord, and he's like, yes. And you're like, oh, I didn't see that. And so to me, once again, very exciting. I thought that was a cool little reveal, because that is a twist for the prequels, because I don't think that they ever call him by that name in the other movies. I don't think they call him Palpatine or anything, because I think it was supposed to be a twist for these. But I thought they pulled it off well, and I was excited to... I like whenever twists work, because my greatest joy in watching these movies with you, like both with the Marvel movies and with these and stuff, is seeing the twists. Because it's fun to see you experience it for the first time. And I wish that you hadn't known that Darth Vader was Luke's father, but it's hard to avoid that. It's hard to avoid that, and so it makes sense that you knew that. But I would have loved if you hadn't known that. That would have been cool. But moving on, like I said, we're really just talking about the villains, because to me that's what really makes all these stories really work. And so we talked about the droids. We talked about General Grievous. We talked about the Emperor. And now we have to talk about the, probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest villains in all cinema history, Darth Vader. Because in this movie, at long last, Anakin turns to the dark side. What did you think about his whole storyline there? Don't bring up the final battle. We're going to talk about that again separately. But just over the movie, his turn to the dark side. What did you think about it?
I was really looking forward to. I think I probably asked you a few times while we were watching just throughout all the movies that we've watched so far, when we were going to get to see, like, are we going to get to see, like, why he turns to the dark side? And so I've really been looking forward to the story, and I was satisfied. Like, I liked how they did it. I enjoyed it. I'm content with the storyline of how they went. And also, I think I better understand how powerful Darth Vader is after seeing this. Just seeing him turn to the dark side and, like, seeing his mental state and stuff. I'm like, okay, I see how powerful and, like, his mindset of where he's coming from whenever he's doing the things that he does now. So it puts everything in different perspective.
Yeah. I think there's something about this where, like, just watching... I was trying to be as unbiased as possible watching this movie. And I think I realized there's some people who just like to dislike things. Because a lot of people, like, the way that he goes to the dark side, it doesn't really satisfy them. But I think it really works. Because to me, whenever you're watching it, I couldn't help but feel bad for him. Because the Jedi really do kind of just... They're kind of jerks to him. I mean, really, should he have gone to the dark side? Absolutely no. I'm not justifying him. Yeah. But I could see how somebody in his state would go there, because the dark side is promising him the key to all the things that he wants. He has already lost so much. He lost his mother. He couldn't save her. He thinks he's going to lose his wife, and he does. And so really the dark side doesn't, win anyways, but he does that to himself. And so the dark side is promising something that he desires. The Jedi, they took him from his family to train him up, and then they're not, like, they keep saying, oh, he's the chosen one. He's the most important person in the whole galaxy. He's the fulfillment of prophecy. But then they keep, like, not trusting him. And ultimately, he proves that they're, ultimately he proves that he's not trustworthy. But it's kind of like, who caused it? Was it him or them? Like, is it nature or nurture? Would he have always turned to the dark side, or is it because they constantly rejected him? Yeah. Because they kept doing stuff where it's like, oh, you can sit at the council, but you can't be a master. And yes, like, you can see how he, like, maybe shouldn't have been so selfish and self-focused and all that. But they could have gone about it in a much better way. They kept doing things where it was almost like they were trying to drive him to the dark side. And they're always warning him about fear. Yet it is their fear of him that drives him to the dark side and causes them to fail. And so when you're watching it, a lot of people, they think that his shift is super sudden. And they think, oh, he goes from being good to evil. I think that you can see how this happened. Like, it seems like he was trying his best to be a Jedi. It's kind of like he's fighting this dark side within him the whole story. Episode 2 and episode 3 specifically. Episode 1, really, he's just a kid. Episode 2 and episode 3, he's always fighting this dark side. Eventually he gives in. And to me, this is like contrasted with Luke in the original trilogy, who is also fighting this dark side, but he doesn't give in. And so I don't think it was a sudden turn. I could see how it happened. And I actually thought it was very satisfying as well. You kept bringing it up. I think in episode 2, you were like, "Is this? Are we going to see how he goes to the dark side?" And I was like, "Brienne, watch the movie." I kept having to remind her. I was like, I was like, "You need to forget that I've seen these. Like, just watch them."
I want to ask him questions, and he's like, "I'm not going to answer them."
But I really did. I like how they pulled it off. I also thought that his acting was a lot better in this one.
Yes.
Like, it seemed more believable. It seemed like he was a better actor, like Hayden Christensen. And so I just thought that was cool. I liked how they pulled it off. And it was, I don't know, very satisfying. And like I said, I was trying to watch it. I was trying to see why people dislike this movie. I think it's just people who really, really, really like... Sometimes fans of something are the worst critics. I think we've seen that with, like, The Chosen, which is another thing that probably most of my subscribers are subscribed because of that show. I think we've seen that the people who really like something, they're really passionate, they can be the worst critics. And they almost start treating this artistic property as if it's their own creation. And so they stop giving leeway... Like, they stop allowing the creators to make their own decisions. And I think that's an issue. Because they start viewing it as if it's their own, which that in and of itself is a theological analysis, It's like God created the entire universe, and rather than being grateful for it and just allowing him to do what he's going to do, we like taking it for ourselves and being like, we start accusing God of stuff whenever he does stuff that we don't like. It's the same thing with The Chosen, same thing with Star Wars. People who really like Star Wars, they probably watched the original trilogy, and they got in their heads, like, this is how it needs to play out. Right. They go watch the prequels, that's not how it plays out, they're not going to like it. And it's like, oh, well, for me, just watching it as a movie, as a kid, I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. I loved it. And even rewatching it now, I think it really works.
Yeah.
And that's why this movie, I just really like it. I think that, like, this movie in and of itself makes the original trilogy better. The original trilogy better to me.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Specifically because after we watched this, I actually showed her a video. I think it's called, like, Before the Dark Times or something like that. If you're watching this, but you've probably seen it. If you found this video for our small channel on YouTube, you've probably seen this video. But it's basically this, it's almost like an Obi-Wan has PTSD video, where it's a compilation of Obi-Wan from A New Hope. And he's describing, it's the scene whenever he's telling Luke about his past as a Jedi Knight, fighting alongside his father and stuff. But it includes flashbacks to this movie. And it's really cool. Like, the editing is so beautiful. It's an amazing video. But to me, it shows how perfectly these, like, fit together. And it makes this movie so amazing. So I thought they did Anakin's turn to the dark side really, really well. And because he turned to the dark side, this obviously culminates in, to me, in my personal opinion, one of the most epic fights of all time.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan versus Anakin. This is, like, this fight is the thing that had to happen. Right? This is, you knew this was coming because, like, this is the story you wanted to see. Whenever Obi-Wan says, my pupil, like, turned to the dark side, you knew there's a story there. And it was that single line, whenever he's describing that to Luke, that told you we need a prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And so they needed to pull this off well. What did you think about the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight?
Yeah. I know some of the other episodes, I don't remember exactly which ones, but my favorite scenes in some of them were the fighting scenes, the lightsaber battles. And I can say that this one tops, like, any of the other ones that we've seen so far. This one was really good, yeah. First of all, the background, like, the planet that they're on is, like, absolutely gorgeous shots. Like, it's crazy how... and then they have, like, the music in the background is just, like, building suspense and intensity the entire time. It's just, it's good. And then also, it's just, like, trainer versus trainee, and they're just, like, going for it. And it was cool. Yeah. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about how in like, in a lot of the movies we watch, you more so than me, but I also would agree with you that usually the fight scenes aren't our favorite parts of the movie. Yeah. Usually it's kind of like, okay, let's get through the fight scene and get back to the story.
Yeah.
But the reason this fight scene works to me is because you do have that weight behind it.
Yeah.
Like I said in our last video when we were talking about episode 2, I do wish that we'd gotten to see more of Anakin and Obi-Wan's like relationship with one another, like a brother type relationship and a master mentor type thing. And I know that people have said that they show that more in the Clone Wars, so maybe at some point we'll go watch that. I don't know. But just in these, like, I kind of view it like you shouldn't have to go watch other stuff to see it. Like, you should be able to just watch the prequels by themselves and get out of it.
Right.
I still stand by the idea that I think that episode 2 should have been episode 1, and maybe there should have been another movie in between those two, between episode 2 and episode 3. Because really, I don't think episode 1 was necessary at all. So I wish we'd seen more of Obi-Wan and Anakin, like, as comrades. But I do think they did a lot in this movie to establish that camaraderie. Specifically at the beginning, where you see them working alongside one another, and you see how Anakin has grown from the last movie to where they really are more like, they're buddies. It's not really as much of a master or mentor relationship. It still is, but you can see why Anakin wants to be a Jedi Master, because he is kind of more powerful than Obi-Wan now, and the only issue is that he's kind of hot-headed. But I think the reason why this fight scene works so well is because it's that emotional payoff to where these guys care for each other. And then whenever they finally get there, whenever, Padme comes to talk to Anakin, and she's trying to talk down, she's like, you're like, who are you? You're going down a path I cannot follow.
Yeah.
And then he just looks up, and Obi-Wan's standing there. And then, he, like, throws off his cloak, and Obi-Wan throws off his cloak. And they're just talking to each other. And, like, you just hear the music swelling up.
Yeah.
And then like they just fight, and it's a really long fight. But
is.
To me, I loved watching it. It's a beautiful fight, and everything. You're like, oh, how it's gonna end. That's the sad part.
Yeah.
You know that Obi-Wan has to win, Anakin has to lose, but at the same time, it's like you're seeing this brotherhood just like shattering.
Yeah.
And it makes it even sadder at the very end. After Obi-Wan, he's on the high ground, which there's a lot of memeable stuff from this movie. He cuts off all of Anakin's limbs except for the limb that Anakin had already had cut off.
Yeah.
So Now Anakin's going to have all robotic limbs. And then, Obi-Wan saying, like, you were my brother, Anakin. You were supposed to bring balance to the Force, to destroy the Sith, not to join them. And it's so heartbreaking. And Ewan McGregor, that's who plays Obi-Wan, he kills it. And you might be excited to know this. I think I might have told you this. They're making an Obi-Wan TV show, which is set in between this movie and the fourth one.
Oh, that's
so
exciting.
it's set during his time while he's on Tatooine. So
that's cool.
And it's going to be that guy playing it, Ewan McGregor. So because now over a decade's past, he's a little bit older, so he could kind of play that in between.
Right.
So it's going to be kind of cool.
That is cool, man.
But yeah, man, that fight scene. Oh, I love it.
Oh, it's good. Yeah. Well, I also like that you can see how you're talking about that, like that brotherly camaraderie that they have. You can see the pain in both of their eyes. Like it's not like. Yeah. This is just, they go onto a ship, there's a bad guy, and they're going to fight him. Like, you can see that there's a relationship, and it's hurting both of them to fight each other because they have so much history together.
Yeah.
Like, even Anakin, like, he is in the depths of the depths. Like,
Darkness,
he is down deep, and you can see that last moment. You can see that he, like, thinks about it for a second. Whenever he looks into him before he says, like, I hate you, or whatever he says.
Well, even, like, he yells, I hate you. Yeah. And then even as he's on fire, there's this moment where he's kind of like looking up at Obi-Wan. Like he's on fire and he's looking at him and it's almost like he wants help. Yeah. He's almost like, Master, like, oh man, like what have I done?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, oh man.
It's good. Yeah.
And obviously this was without a doubt my favorite scene as a kid because lightsabers were the one thing I cared about Star Wars. Like now I can say being a little bit older, I'm still not that old, but being older is where I can actually process the movies more. I do just enjoy them for the story. But as a kid, I only liked the action scenes. I was like, give me lightsabers. And this was the most epic lightsaber duel. And also, I like how they have this going at the same time as the fight between Yoda and Palpatine.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
To where it's like you have these two different... Like, the symbolism is cool. Like, you have the Master and his pupil fighting on this planet where basically Anakin's life is going... Like, he's going to die, right? Anakin's dying. Darth Vader killed him. Yeah. Like that's happening, and there's like symbolism with it being like on like a burning planet, like everything's burning to the ground. But then you have Yoda and Palpatine fighting in the Senate because the Senate itself is breaking, and now there's going to be an empire, and it ends with two different sides winning. Obi-Wan wins the one fight, but Darth Vader doesn't die. And then Yoda loses against Palpatine and he has to flee and he says, I failed, I'm going into exile. And so now this gives a whole new context to whenever Luke meets him later on. Yoda, he's not just out there because he's just a hermit. He's exiled because he failed as a Jedi. And he feels that he's failed the entire galaxy. And you're like, oh wow, it's just contrasted so well. And so there's a lot of emotional payoff to this. And I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. This is where I fell in love with lightsabers. I loved this. So good. But now we've got to get to probably my favorite part of the movie, and this was the thing I was looking forward to the most in getting you to watch it. And this was a reveal which, if you were familiar with Star Wars at all, you knew this, and you might not think of this as a twist, but because Brienne did not know anything about Star Wars, this was a huge twist. Because you gotta remember, we have not watched episode 6 yet. And in episode 6, it is revealed that Luke and Leia are siblings. And so this is something I want to just talk about very briefly. I struggled in deciding what order we were going to watch these in. Because normally people would say watch 4, 5, 6, then go to 1, 2, 3. I thought it'd be more satisfying to go 4, 5, and then after the reveal about Vader being Luke's father, you go back to 1, 2, 3, and then we finish with 6. But the big thing that almost made me not do that was the reveal that Luke and Leia were siblings. Because I realized that's in episode 6. I was like, do I want to spoil that here? But I realized that either way, it's going to be a plot twist.
That's true.
You either experience it in episode 3 or episode 6. And so is it spoiling it? Technically, but it's still a twist.
It is.
And as I thought about it, I thought this might be the better twist. Because in episode 6, we'll see it. But they kind of just talk about it and they're like, oh yeah, we're siblings. Whereas in this one, it was really cool to where, I don't know, like, it's only moments before whenever Padme's dying and they say, we're trying to save the babies. And they're like, babies? And they said, yes, there's twins. And just tell us, How did you feel during this? I'm actually going to, after we talk about it in a second, I'm going to put her reaction in there, because I did actually record some of her reaction to this scene. But tell us, what did you think about this whole twist that Luke and Leia were siblings?
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all. Whenever they said twins, and then I caught on to that, and I looked at David, I was like, twins? Did they just say twins? And then I just, like, kept watching for a second, and then something, like, clicked in my brain. I was like, wait a second, is that the person that's, like, the other Hope? Mm-hmm. And so then he's like, just watch it. And so we kept watching, and then they said it was Leia, and I was like, hold the phone, wait a second. I was like, Luke and Leia are, like, siblings? I was like, do they grow up, like, not near each other? Because, like, whenever Luke, like, Obi-Wan came to get Luke, like, Leia wasn't there. Yeah. Like, Leia, and then Leia's a princess, and Luke's not, like, anything. And I was like, what? Like, my brain was everywhere. And so then I had to get him to rewind, because the next, like, minute or so of clips that happened, I wasn't paying attention at all. Yeah. Because
literally Darth Vader's revealed for the first time and all this stuff. She was not noticing any of it. She was just like, what just happened?
We need to pause for a second.
Yeah. Yeah, so
that was crazy.
I was really happy about her reaction to this, mainly because I tried to play my cards really smartly here, because there were a lot of things, if you watch episodes 4 and 5, there are no hints whatsoever that Luke and Leia are siblings. No. Because first off, Leia kisses Luke.
Then you mentioned that to me. Yes. And I was like, whoa, we need to slow down. I'm taking in too much information at once.
And so I tried to play it smart here, because if you noticed in our last few videos, I've tried to bring up things to emphasize to you, just to make this twist more surprising. Like, there's certain details in the other movies that, give you an idea something's going on. Right. Like the one line where Yoda says, no, there is another hope. Because I wasn't sure if you caught on to that. So whenever we were watching the movie, I was like, who do you think that's about? And then I made sure to bring it up in the video so that was on your mind. Because if not, I thought you might overlook it and not even think about that line. Yeah. I wanted to make sure you were thinking about that. And then I would also ask you, so who do you think that Leia's going to end up with, Han or Luke? Because I was wanting to get you in the mind, oh yeah, I remember they kissed, so it's kind of one or the other. And so I was trying to, like, make it to where you had no idea. Yeah. And I was also trying to get a feeler on whether or not you knew. Yeah. Because
I didn't.
Like, specifically whenever I was like, do you think Han or Luke? I was wanting to see if you were going to be like, well, obviously not Luke, because they're siblings. Yeah. But you didn't say that, and I was like, oh, so she doesn't know. Yeah. And so that got me really excited. And so, real quick, here is, I didn't catch her initial reaction. Yeah. I should have been recording.
A few seconds after.
But I didn't want to bring out the phone, because then she would have known something big was coming. Yeah. And so I just left it down, and then after she started reacting, I pulled out my phone and just kind of got some of her reactions as she was processing this. So here's that. So Brienne, describe to us what just happened.
I just found out that Luke and Leia are siblings. They're siblings. What? Do you know what scene I'm talking about? Whenever, at first it was the only hope was Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. And then Obi-Wan said something.
They said he's our only hope, and then Yoda said, no, there's another.
Yeah. What? Okay. My mind's blown.
Didn't see that one coming, huh?
No. How do they get separated? Why was Luke on whatever planet he was living with his uncle? And Leia's a princess, so why are they not together? I'm confused. What? Okay. Can you shed some light here?
Just gotta watch the movie.
Is it gonna explain it in this one?
Yeah, they'll explain it all.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, they better explain this one, because otherwise you're going to have to show me where they explain it, because I'm not waiting.
I do have a question for you, though.
What?
Do you remember that one scene where Leia kissed Luke?
Why would you do that to me right now?
How does that make you feel?
Oh, my. Why would you do that right now? You should have waited later to say that. There's too many things to process. They have no clue. They have no clue. But Luke has the Force. You can't tell me that he doesn't have an inkling of, like, hey, this person's, like, I sent something different from her, you know? Like, I don't believe that there's no way that he wouldn't know. Like, what in his right mind? Oh, this is horrible. This is bad. This is not good. What? What? Okay. Man. Okay. Let's keep going. I need to figure this stuff out.
And yeah, so I just really thought it was funny. I thought your reactions were great. This was basically the type of reaction I was hoping for with the whole "No, I am your father" statement. Because it was like what I just showed you was probably 1/10 of the amount of time that we just sat there, her processing it. She made me pause the video, rewind it, and we had to talk about it for a bit because this was literally causing her to reformulate everything.
Oh, it puts everything in, like, different contexts.
Yes.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to process
Yeah,
that.
and to me,
crazy.
This was kind of what people probably felt when they first heard the "I'm your father" thing.
Yeah, I know.
Because it recontextualizes everything.
Yeah, I even said when we were watching it, I was like, I wish I could have had this same experience whenever it came to that reveal.
Yeah.
Because, like, the mind-blowing situation that my brain just experienced, I was like, I would think it'd be even more whenever it came to the reveal of Darth Vader being Luke's father.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's crazy.
And it was so satisfying to me because this is probably, I'm not lying, we have watched so many movies. The last probably 45 minutes of this movie are probably the most zoned in I have ever seen you in a movie ever. Because typically, sometimes we'll be watching a movie and she'll be quiet for a very long time. And I'll be like, Brienne? And turns out she's been asleep for an hour. But this time, I'll be like, Brienne, are you awake? She's like, yeah, I'm awake. And she was just like, but she was just quiet. She's like, she was zoned in and she's like, there's so much going on. And like, she felt the way, and that to me, that testifies that this is a good movie.
Yeah.
Because it has it has the desired effect on people.
Yeah.
To where she, like, I didn't go in here telling her how I felt about this movie. I didn't go in here. I tried to not tell her those things because I don't want to tell her people don't like this movie, people like it. I don't want that. I'm just trying to get her base reaction. And she was invested. And to me, I mean, we've watched all the Marvel movies. We've watched all that stuff. She was never invested in those as much as this. Yeah. And so to me, that tells you something because she was like, oh, like, this is great. And then whenever the Luke, like, whenever the second baby was born, like, it's a girl. And then they said, Leia. And, like, for a second, she didn't react. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Like, did she not hear what it said? And then, like, you were like, hold up. So Luke and Leia are siblings?
I said, did they mean Princess Leia?
Yeah. No, like, it was really funny because even, like, right before that, whenever they said, we're saving the babies. Oh, well, there's twins. She was like, wait a second. Is that what Yoda was talking about whenever it came to the other hope? And so then I was trying to figure out what she was processing because she still wasn't thinking Leia. I think you were thinking, like, I don't know, maybe Luke has a twin brother who looks exactly like him or something.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just thought it was very satisfying to me. Great. I was like, oh, this is great. And then the rest of the movie, just to kind of finish this part up, because we still have a few more things to talk about. Yeah. The rest of the movie is setting up everything for the original trilogy because you were like, wait, so why are they living separate places? Why is she a princess? All this stuff. You had all these questions. Yeah. And I was like, Brienne, we got like 5 minutes left of the movie. It's going to tell you. What did you think about all the rest of the setup? I mean, we have Darth Vader being created. We have the Death Star being built. We have, Leia going off to Alderaan, and then Luke going off to Tatooine. What do you think about all that setup?
Yeah, I think they set it up really well, especially in a short amount of time. They did really well. But even those small setups, my brain was still like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe this is actually happening. Like, yeah. I mean, I think it's still not processing it now. I'm just like, wow. Like, that's the only word I have. It's like, wow.
Yeah. It's good. It was cool because she literally, there was this shift. There was like this shift where at one point Brienne was just like watching a movie, and at another point she was a Star Wars fan. Yeah. Like, it was like there was a, like, all these other ones, I feel like it's like she's been watching it and she's like, okay, we're just watching this so we can make a video. Whereas this one she was like, David, I don't even know if we can make the video yet. I need to process this. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I think your reaction made me more of a Star Wars fan. So that was really cool. Yeah. But we've talked all about all the main talking points. Before we get to the theological analysis, real quick, we got to do what we've done every episode. Favorite scene, favorite character. Let's start with favorite character this time. Who was your favorite character in this episode?
Oh, I forgot we even did favorite. I thought of favorite scene. That one. I've been thinking about that one for a while.
Okay, so let's do favorite scene then first.
Okay, well, before, my favorite scene of the entire movie was whenever we found out that Leia and Luke were
siblings.
Yeah, siblings. Okay. That because that was just such a. I've never had a moment watching a movie that was like that. Never.
Yeah.
Have I had a moment like that? I was like, that was great. Yeah. The scene was good. I enjoyed it. I was like, that's my favorite. But before,
which is funny because if you've seen the original trilogy, that wouldn't be a twist at all. Well, like you'd be expecting it the entire time, you know? But I don't know. That's kind of cool.
That is. Yeah.
So, but continue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I just thought I'd say that.
No, you're good. But before that scene came, my favorite scene, which was the most minor thing ever, and it was just a funny thing, was when Yoda walked in the room and he just went like this, and the two guys that were like the guards at the door, they just like completely fell down.
He's confronting Sidious for the first time.
I was like, oh, that was funny. Yeah. Like, completely didn't need to be in there.
Well, because it was also contrasted. Like, weren't Anakin and Obi-Wan had just started fighting, right?
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, and then it just cuts to like
silence. Yeah. It's just silence, and then you just see like Yoda walk into the doorway, and you're like, oh, some wise words are about to be said, and he's just like.
Yeah, because they turn towards him, and they're like about to attack, and he's like, and then they just go down. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, so funny and serious.
Yeah. So was that your serious scene as well?
Because
I know that in some videos you've had favorite serious scenes and funny scenes. Was that both?
No, that was my favorite funny scene. My favorite serious scene was whenever they were.
Oh, the Padme one. Okay, cool. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, my favorite scene. It's so hard because literally
there's so many. Good ones.
Can't.
Yeah.
Like, to me, basically the last, like, from the moment that Anakin and Obi-Wan start fighting, I love the rest of the movie. I mean, like, I enjoyed the movie, but, like, literally that whole thing, like, everything just, the payoff is so good. Like, I just love it all. The only thing I don't like is whenever Darth Vader stands up and he's like, no! Yeah. And I didn't like that part. But it's so good. It's hard to pick a thing. Oh, man, I think... I don't know. Like that. I'm struggling here.
Yeah.
I'm struggling.
There's a lot of good ones.
Like from a cinematic perspective, I'd say the closing montage, just because it it ends with the uncle and the aunt like just holding Luke, looking out at the two suns, which is probably the quintessential Star Wars image from the original movie, like A New Hope. It's Luke looking out into the distance, and there's something just so. Captivating about that one image because it's like this guy just in the middle of a desert planet like looking out at this like it just tells you there's something more out there.
Yeah.
And so the way that the movie ends with like them holding him there, it's so satisfying. But I would say my favorite scene is the fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, Anakin, because it just satisfies so many things. I mean, if it was a short fight, it wouldn't have worked,
Yeah.
Like it had to be something long, drawn out to where it was like this epic duel to where whenever you get to A New Hope, you're like, yeah, these guys have baggage. And then you think about ultimately how Obi-Wan will sacrifice himself, and he'll just die like by the hand of Darth Vader. It's like, I don't know, it's so cool. It's just so good. So now, favorite character.
Okay, I think my favorite character would be Anakin, and I think because of how much character development there was. We all know that I love character development. I think I mention it in probably every video that we make, but it's because it's good.
It is good.
But there's just so much depth to his character. Because before, in all the other episodes we've watched, it was a little more shallow, right? Especially in 4 and 5. You don't really see a lot of him.
Oh yeah, because he's just evil.
Yeah. So but once you get to 1, 2, and 3, they're showing you the backstory and kind of like introducing you to just his story in general from when he was little and everything. But once you get to this one, like, so much depth is given to his character, and it makes you not respect his character more, but kind of. Like, you know that he's evil, so you don't, like, respect him for what he does. Yeah. But just his story, his character, just in general. Yeah. I think that's why I liked him the best, just because of how much depth they gave him. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
My favorite character, once again, I'm split between Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Because to me, both of them, I love Obi-Wan, but in this movie, gosh, I don't know, it's hard. I'm not good at picking favorites.
Obi-Wan was my second.
Yeah, because Obi-Wan, I think he's probably going to have to be my second favorite, because Anakin, I really do like him in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's good. Like, in this, I can see why people find him annoying in the second one. I definitely see why people find him annoying in the first one. But in this one, I liked Anakin. I like him a lot. And, like, whenever he goes to the dark side, I get where he's coming from. I mean, I would never approve of it. I think he's doing a horrible thing. He's a villain. He's bad. But the way that they do it, I think it actually, like, you can see where he's coming from. He's, like, these people, you know, he's supposed to trust them, yet they don't trust him. They keep telling him to set aside his fear, but they fear him. And then the one person who's reaching out to him is this guy who also... Like, the one person who reaches out to him and believes in him is the one guy who's also offering him everything his heart desires. And so I could see why he would go to the dark side. The only thing is, after Darth Sidious's face got all jacked up, I'd be like, bruh, have you seen what happened to your face? Like, I know, like, they just kind of glossed over that.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like, whoa, what just happened, man? Like,
you be a little more shocked.
Like, if I were Darth Sidious, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what just happened? That was crazy. Like, he just handled it so well. I'd be freaking out. But, sorry, that's all the point. I think Anakin's my favorite. I think I'd have to go agree with you there. I think Anakin's definitely my favorite in this one. But Obi-Wan's a close second because, man, like, it's just, they are the ones who make this prequel to me, the whole prequel trilogy. And that's why, once again, I gotta say, episode 1, I don't think we needed it. I really don't. I think they could have started with episode 2. Episode 2 should have been episode 1. Episode 3 should have stayed episode 3. They should have had a different thing in episode 2. But, I don't know. It was, yeah, I like Anakin. Do you have anything else you wanted to say before I got to the theological analysis part?
I will say that I liked the music a lot in this one. That made, we talked about that a lot. That made so many of the scenes, like, especially whenever Anakin, you could see he was starting to flip that switch, but not fully yet. But there was those scenes whenever, you know, he was toying with the idea of going to the dark side, and it was he was right on the edge, and you would hear the dun dun dun. It would just come in for a few seconds in the back right before the scene switched. I was like, oh, that's pure gold. Like that is good. Yeah,
and the moment when he's named Darth Vader for the first time.
Yeah,
like it's the same thing, but now you will be pronounced Darth Vader.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah. And also just like...
The music makes it.
The shots are so pretty. Like we talked about at the very end, you know, he gets his full outfit, his helmet and everything, and the table just like slowly lifts up.
Oh, I forgot. That was almost my favorite scene as well. That
was my
goes in
second
the montage.
favorite. Yeah, that was my second favorite. It's like, oh man, that was so... It slowly lifts up, and it's and then
keep in mind she did forget she missed that scene the first time we watched it because she was still processing the Leia thing. So we had to rewatch Darth Vader's reveal. But.
And then the Emperor comes up, and then Darth Vader is like, "Yes, Master," and I'm like, "Who's the master here?" Like I think we have the roles reversed.
Yeah,
like,
he's powerful
because he starts like crushing things around him, and I'm like, you just became Darth Vader a few scenes ago, and you're already this powerful. Like, you haven't even delegated anything yet. That's crazy.
One thing, this is just critiquing and being very nitpicky here. One thing I would have preferred in that scene is I would have preferred if they had kept him a little more silent. Because what happens is he turns to Sidious, he's like, "Where's Padme? Is she all right?" And he says, "It seems like in your anger you killed her." And then he like breaks out and he goes, "No, it can't be. No!" Like, I wish they'd taken out that last part.
I would agree
because with that, I think, because then like it shows everything being crushed and stuff, I think it would have been so much better if he says, "Is Padme all right?" And he says, "In your anger you killed her." And then just in silence, Darth Vader breaks out. And then all of a sudden things just start crushing. Yeah. I think that would have been more, but like, it kind of makes it cheesy. Yeah. Whereas like, if he just like walks out and then things just start crushing, you're like, oh. Yeah. Like, you already get the idea, this guy's powerful, but that, I forgot, that was probably one of my favorite scenes as well, because just like the first breath, whenever like the mask lowers down on him, and you're
and you just see like a little bit of smoke. Yeah.
It's like,
also, I noticed whenever he became Darth Vader and he has the helmet, and whenever he does start speaking for the first time, whenever the Emperor's there, you see how before his voice had emotion, but now that he's like, it's monotone. Like, it doesn't change pitch or anything. He only has like one way of talking, and I think that's like, that plays into his character a lot. And I never noticed that.
Anakin Skywalker's dead.
Exactly.
Darth Vader killed him.
Yeah, but I never really noticed that until I watched this whole movie and we got to that scene. I was like, oh, he's emotionless now. Like, it's all been sucked out of him. That's crazy.
Good stuff.
So good.
Man. But theological analysis time. I'll keep this one brief because this one actually I felt was a lot more straightforward because it's kind of the culmination of what we've seen in all these movies so far. And this has to do with the idea of searching your feelings. This has been a constant thing, constant word of advice that people have been giving Anakin throughout all these movies. And they have been giving this advice as if feelings are the best way to judge truth. You actually have, in this movie, you at least have Obi-Wan and Palpatine both telling Anakin, search your feelings to discern what is true. So you have both a Jedi and a Sith giving the same advice, saying, search your feelings. And what Anakin does is he searches his feelings, and ultimately he lands in the dark side. And so from a theological analysis perspective, I'm going to refer to the verse in Jeremiah which says that the heart is deceptive above all things and desperately wicked. Because that's exactly what we see in real life. If you rely on your feelings to determine what is true or not, you will end up in the dark side. You have to have some objective standard of truth that is beyond your feelings. As Ben Shapiro would say, facts don't care about your feelings. That is it's a true statement. You can't rely on your feelings. And ultimately, the fact that the Jedi give the same advice as the Sith, to me, reinforces why it makes sense that Anakin turned against the Jedi. Because the Jedi stand for the light side doesn't necessarily mean they're in the right. They just might have accidentally stumbled upon doing a better thing than the Sith.
Right.
Really, they both have errors. They should be searching for something more objective there. I don't know. I've noticed that's throughout all these movies. It's not just in this movie. Throughout all the prequels, at least for sure, it's always search your feelings, search your feelings, search your feelings. Your feelings are not an objective standard by which to make things. There's going to be times where you feel something that you shouldn't act upon, right? You're going to be like Anakin feeling that anger, and you're going to go out and kill people. And so it's weird how the Jedi are always saying, search your feelings, but then at the same time, they're telling him not to feel certain things. They're saying you can't feel fear, you can't feel anger. Whoa, hold up. You can't tell me to base my entire life on my feelings, but then tell me to quench those feelings. But it's all right it's all right to feel these things as long as you're choosing to act upon something else. And that's what the Bible provides us with, right? So there's going to be certain things in life that you feel you should do or you feel are correct, but that doesn't mean that they are correct or they are what you should do. You have to have this objective standard beyond that. And that's what God offers us through the Bible. That's what God offers us through Jesus Christ. Facts don't care about your feelings, right? There are certain times where your feelings as a sinful human being will lead you astray and lead you to the dark side. And in those moments, we have to trust in something beyond our feelings. We have to trust in the truth of God's word. Jesus says in John chapter 8, if you abide in my word, you'll be my disciples and you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So that is basically my brief theological analysis for this, because Anakin's drift to the dark side is because he trusted his feelings. And that's the same for us as well. Whenever we rely on our feelings, the path to the dark side is not far off. So, there you go. Do you have anything else you want to say about Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith?
To add to your theological analysis, I will say, lately in the Bible study group, we've been going through Genesis. And Anakin reminded me how he's kind of on the edge, back and forth, right? He has these desires and these things that he's wanting. And when he talks to the Emperor, he gives him these things that he wants. He's like, the desires that Anakin is looking for, he offers it to him, saying that he can fulfill that. And it reminded me, if you go back to like the Garden of Eden when the serpent comes in, and God's given them all of this land, but he says, you cannot eat from this tree, only this tree. And so then they end up taking the fruit from that tree because the serpent is tempting them and saying, you'll become like God if you do these things, and is giving them things that they would want but don't necessarily need. But even though God has provided them with all of those other things that they could choose from, the one thing that they can't have, they want. And so that kind of reminded me of Anakin, because he has all of these other things that the Jedi can provide. And in the end, he's the one that end up killing Padme anyways. Even though, that's the vision that he saw, and he thought that by going to the dark side, he ended up bringing that about himself. And so that kind of reminds me
That's true.
The dark side kind of being like the serpent. And we always want things that we don't have. The saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. There's all these things, and we usually focus on the stuff that we can't have because we think that's going to make our lives better, instead of focusing on the blessings and the things that God has already given us in the moment. So yeah.
Anakin is standing at the tree of knowledge of good and evil with his hand on the fruit, and he's about to bite into it, and all the Emperor has to say is, do it. No, that's really good. It also reminds me of Cain and Abel right after that as well. Sin is crouching at your door. You must rule over it. Anakin does not rule over it. Right? He was supposed to bring balance to the Force, but as of now, he has succumbed to it, and he has joined the Sith. So very good stuff. Very sad, but such a good conclusion to the prequel trilogy. You know, it started off pretty weak, and it was all right, but I love this movie, and I don't care if people dislike it. I love it, and I'm fine with that.
Great.
That being said, next movie we're watching is Rogue One, which takes place in between episode 3 and episode 4. And so I thought it'd be good for us to go to this one because it'll kind of allow us to once again set our minds on what happened in the original trilogy. And then after we watch Rogue One, we're going to go back and watch episode 6 and see how this whole original trilogy concludes. And then I think we might go watch The Mandalorian and stuff before we get to the sequel trilogy. But we'll see. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell, share this video with your friends, with your fellow Star Wars nerds, your fellow people who like watching YouTube, which is anybody, you know? Everybody likes YouTube. Just share it with them, and, they get to see a pretty face. So, thank you for watching this. If you stuck with us this far, please subscribe to the channel, comment below, let us know whether or not you like this movie, and if you didn't, tell us why. Come on. But yeah, we like talking with you in the comments, so please just let us know that stuff. Until next time, my name is David.
And my name is Brienne.
And this has been on Let's Be Honest About Movies. Please be sure to keep a smile on your face and don't let anybody steal your joy. Have a blessed day, evening, whatever time you're watching this. See you later. Tonight you will deny me in a single breath. You'll deny we met.